Super excited for today. Hey everyone, I am Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon, and on behalf of Dave Savage and the whole entire crew over at Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang, welcome to another Tuesday interview where Dave calls it a Tuesday takeover, but since I'm on this channel so much, I don't know if it quite goes that far, but I am really excited for the journey we're going to take today. I titled this, How to Recession-Proof Your Business. However, I've got someone who is maybe going to take a slightly different direction. I want to introduce to you all who Bill Hart commented in the comments is lightning in a bottle. Welcome, my friend, John Downs. What's up, sir?
Hey, not much. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a few years. I started going back, realizing that I've been on and off sort of these mortgage coach interviews since I think 2015, 16. So I'm super excited to kind of reach out and have this conversation and kind of get reconnected with a lot of loan officers around the country.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. So people don't know John Downs, you know, where are you at? Kind of talk about your business, that kind of thing real quick.
I mean, it's like lightning in a bottle, as Bill said. I'm on fire. No, kidding. It's awful.
but all right, let's start with where you originate. What part of the country are you in? What how does that look? Let's get some basics here.
There you go. So I'm in the DC metro area. So I live in Annapolis, which is about 30-40 minutes east of DC, but my primary lending market is sort of greater Washington, DC metro. And I've been here really my whole career. So 22 years.
22 years. All right. So kind of, I'm gonna sort of frame where we're coming from. You know, I have been having lots of conversations lately with folks like John, really people, I think, of every level of production, right? One of the things I love about Win by Noon and the seat that I sit in is that I've got folks who are brand spanking new in the business. And then I've got, people who are $100+ million producers that, I'm able to talk to week in and week out. And it's really interesting. I interviewed Bill Hart yesterday, Deborah Bird and I did over on the Win by Noon channel. It's a great interview if you want to check it out. And Bill talked about the fact that we're going to see a huge drop in loan officers in 2023 and a huge drop in real estate agents. And, my passion is it shouldn't be anyone from this community, right? If you're here and you're plugged in, you need to figure out what to do and, how to move forward. And so I was prepping for a conversation I'm going to have at the Mastermind event in Las Vegas, where I'll be on the main stage, and really was just thinking through the fact that there's so many people worried about how our interest rates and the recession can impact our business. And I was talking to Josh Medlin. He said, well, what happens if rates go to 7? And, I sort of joked because I said, well, gosh, Dan Rawich keeps telling us and Fannie Mae's telling us that rates are going to be in the 4s next year. I don't know that I want to be the guy who predicts they're going to be in 7, but really the question is what if they go to 7, and how can you really recession proof your business? What are the things that you need to do? Because ultimately, I can look back on my career. I had a first great 10 years in the business almost before the financial crisis hit, and, got kind of scary. I was on my way, right? I had been, coached by Bill Hart for 4 years. I just got into the Building Champions Masters Coach Group, an invitation. And all of a sudden I was off to this big event where I was going to hang out with some of, my heroes in the mortgage business. And I had 3 loans in my pipeline, and I had to call the credit card company to see what my balance was, so that when I went to pay for the hotel or for dinner, that I didn't get my card rejected. I thought that would be kind of embarrassing, but that's really how thin my finances were, at the time. And I really had to work to reinvent myself. It was actually really one of the most challenging times for me, personally and financially, as I decided I had to really rebuild. And I just remember Linda Davidson saying, oh, in her Texas drawl, oh, sweetie, you can do it. And, these people really were behind me. I joked I had 3.5 realtors at the time that I did business with. And so kind of as I'm thinking about here we are now, it's totally different, right? We've got social media. We've got, different types of loans than we had back then, but really it's the same. Loan applications are down. People are fearful about applying for mortgages. And what I want to do is kind of walk us through a journey of how do we recession proof our business? Because ultimately in the end, maybe next week rates go down and we're all back off to the races. But I think that there's some cornerstone things that everyone can do to really shift your business, because that's really what I did back then, right? Here I was super stressed out about my business. And then all of a sudden I started doing the things that I knew I needed to do. And I started doing them consistently. And I still took time. It still took me 6 months to dig back out of the hole and rebuild a consistent business. But I was able to go from there to, all of a sudden went from, 100+ loans to 200 plus loans to 400 plus loans. And then finally, if you've heard my win by noon story of really how I crushed it and went 550 loans, over 100 million for the first time. And so as I think about it, John, you're in a totally different market, right? My market was small little loans. You're in a market that's got small loans and big loans. And, one of the things that when we were prepping for this, you said, people need to be visible, not invisible. You said he who has the most, or he or she who has the most friends wins. So let's just start there.
Yeah. There was a book, I think it was a Building Champions, master's coach, this book, Ninja Selling, came up. And I just remember, to kind of your point about getting into coaching at a time where you were at a bottom, right? And then seeing all these ideas and coming up with some disciplines to get to the other side, build a business that could sort of survive all ups and downs. And I was kind of in the same boat when I jumped in and met you back in 2012 at Master's Coach. I was sort of the story of, I went from zero to hero pretty fast from 2000 to 2007, 8. And then all my builders kind of went out of business in 2009. And I was sort of left wondering, oh boy, I then went from here to zero. And now let's go, let's start over. But this book, there's a chapter in it, Ninja Selling. It said, you're either visible or invisible. It's only 3 pages long. And that kind of always stuck with me. And what I've realized is that in business, for me, that chapter really encompasses all my success. When I'm invisible, meaning I'm in my office, I'm sitting behind a phone, maybe I'm just working my database, maybe I'm having too much fun personally or with my kids or whatever, I'm invisible. And then after a sustained period of time of being invisible, my business drops. And then once you're like, oh crap, I got to get back to the basics. And then you get ultra visible. And then sure enough, there's a 2 or 3 month lag, business starts coming in again. So that's just a great reminder of being visible. And I think mentoring some new guys in our company right now, and they're doing absolutely amazing. And I'm looking at my production, I'm like, why am I not doing as good as you are? You just started a year ago. But the reality is, new people, they have the time and the energy to be visible, to do all those things that experienced people need to do. And now what I've noticed is I've been out of practice, right? I've had 2 years, 2.5 years of sort of a low rate environment where your database could pay you well, had a group of really good core real estate agents that supported me really well. And now here we are at a time where I've been invisible for a few years and I have to get back to the basics. I have to act like I'm new, right? And that, I think, is where the success comes.
Well, I love that whole idea. And it's, it's fun because obviously you and I, right, we've known each other now for a decade. I had the honor of being your coach for a couple of years when I was coaching. And so I have this insight into you. And, it's fun because I was joking beforehand with, Robert, our man behind the scenes here at MortgageCoach, who runs the show, about the fact that I truly love watching you on social media because you are so good. I mean, you guys have to understand that John did almost a 50-minute video where he's running, and he's probably running at like a 6-minute mile, where he's holding the camera and he's explaining to home buyers, what they should do to address their concerns in the market. So if you're not following John on social, I would follow him because he's just really good. I mean, besides the fact that he's a good looking guy, I mean, look at his great setup there. His content is excellent. And so I appreciate about that, but you're also super transparent because you're saying, gosh, you know what, just like everyone else, I was so busy being busy doing loans, right? Bill Hart likened it to when you're in one of those little cash machines where the cash is flying around and you're trying to grab $100 bills. I kind of felt like it was, you're wheeling around a wheelbarrow and that, the bills were just falling out of the sky as people were getting loans the last couple of years. And I appreciate the fact that you're willing to share kind of transparently that you got to be like you're new again. So what does that look like? To me, the challenge for everybody is that they have time now. So then they start doing video, they start being visible again. And then all of a sudden, it's going to get busy again at some point. At some point, rates are going to drop. At some point, consumers are going to have less fear. At some point, your business is going to pick up and you've got to stay consistent. So, what's your thought on that? Like, what's your rhythm right now for being visible? And then how do you think you and other people can protect themselves going forward to make sure they stay consistent so that if it does get busy, they just don't stop doing it again?
Yeah, so I'm probably not going to be a poster child on consistency. That I think ends up, for me personally, being the hardest piece. For instance, go back about a month and a half ago, I think I became socially alive again, probably about 2 months ago with the help of Deborah Bird. And when I was talking to her about this whole visible, invisible thing, it was, she came out with some principles. You can do a reel a day, and then gave some topics very similar to Win by Noon, where you have certain days of the week to do certain things, and it just becomes part of your habit every day, right? Monday's this, Tuesday's this, Wednesday's this. Now, what I noticed though, is I would do too much of something, right? All of a sudden it was nothing but Instagram reels. And then I forgot to call leads. So there is a definite part of your system that as you get into, let's say, some of these basics, realizing that the importance of your calendar and having your big rocks put on there. Win by Noon's a great philosophy. Tim Brahim has one, rock, sand, pebbles, where you put your big rocks on your calendar just to make sure those things get done. And that's like the gospel. You're not going to break it. You're going to honor it and commit to yourself. I do need more of that right now. I'm kind of in that when I think of someone new, and this came up about a week ago, is you talk about all these different things you need to do. And so number one, you have to be a product expert. And if there's any change in the market that we're in right now, is that there is product expansion. And some could say that that's on the non-QM side. For me, in the DC market, it's probably, private lenders, credit unions, jumbo investors in the high balance space, that kind of stuff. So you've got to dive in all your guidelines, be an expert. Then you have to let your community know that those rates or guidelines exist, right? So that's a job. Another job is social media content. But then as you come up with social media content, you have to do research. What are the good topics? And then you have to dive into what some of the new people in my office are doing. And I'm doing the same thing. I went to every jurisdiction and I found every single grant program. And I've now, over the last 60 days, become a grant program expert. Because I do believe the next market, if rates stay high for a while, it's probably your stereotypical first-time homebuyer market. It's probably a lot of grant stuff. So I've got to be an expert in that too. So I know I'm taking some tangents of lots of things. And that's what I think makes this job so difficult, that once leads begin coming in, how do you find those things that are your new big rocks that consistently you do, week after week moving forward? I don't know if I know what that is yet, in all honesty. I don't know if I like Instagram as much, or long form video on Facebook or YouTube, or my website with video blogs and Facebook ads. I'm kind of trying it all out right now. And I'm trying to use this downtime to figure out what's the thing that I like to do, what seems to work, what is comfortable for me to execute quickly. I think those are all the thoughts that are going on in my head right now.
Well, I love it that you say it's your downtime right now, because I think a lot of people are afraid to, admit that everything is not as busy as they would like. And so I love the idea of becoming an expert in those different areas. You mentioned the big rock thing. There's a great video. I'll find it afterwards and I'll post it in the group. It's a Franklin. It's a Stephen Covey thing where he talks about, right, the big rocks first. And it's a big part of what I've always taught in my, a lot of my open, when I go out and speak in public on Win by Noon, it's one of the things that I gravitate towards. So it's fun to hear you. It's a good reminder for me ahead of the fall speaking circuit. And because you do have to figure out what are those non-negotiables, going to be, and then how do you do it? You mentioned the fact that you got to call leads. So let me just give a quick plug. Dave pinned to the top of the group an interview he did with a gentleman named Myron Chamberlain. I know Myron, he's a good guy. And he is Prime Lending's #1 producer. And he said that his non-negotiable discipline is calling all leads every day from 8 to 9. It's just one of those things I've always said, you've got to have these non-negotiable activities that you do every day. And then the other thing he's requiring is his team to call 10 people in his database every week. And so again, he's not giving them something overarching to the team members, but think about that. When's the last time you had someone in your sales team or someone in your on the production side checking in with clients? Because your clients know your processors, but tends to be that your processors don't want to make those types of calls. So I'm interested to watch the interview because I really want to hear about how he does that. I had talked to Lori Richardson, someone else that John and I know, earlier this year, and she was doing the same thing. She was actually having her team call and set up, kind of tee up annual mortgage reviews for her. So I think that was a great piece of it. I think everyone's got to decide what is it that's really important for you to do. So I love that. So for you, it's going to be product expert. It's going to be video expert, let's just call it that. And then also a down payment grant expert. And so then how are you squeezing that all in a day, along with doing the lead stuff and everything else you need to do?
Yeah, so right ahead of this call, I told you I need to create a win by 3 p.m. system, or a wake up by 4 so you're done by noon system. So, you know, again, I'm not a poster child for many things. I've always been an idea guy, and I've always been a shiny object person. And then as I start getting into this one thing, that one thing generally will consume my day. You know, last week, I on this rabbit hole, I realized all my thumbnails looked awful. And instead of just finding someone I could outsource thumbnails to on Fiverr or Upwork, I spent a few hours messing around on YouTube and then downloading a few apps and started making thumbnails. You know,
you get them done though? Because I think you and I suffer from the same thing. We love shiny objects. For me, it's I don't always go by the philosophy that good is done is better than perfect.
Yeah, I'm a victim of that. I'm a victim of, if it's not perfect, forget about it, start over. And that's a problem I've been fighting for years. You know, I was writing this long form content blog last week, and it's all about should you get an adjustable rate mortgage? I've rewritten the first 3 paragraphs 15 times, and I don't think I've gotten to the 4th paragraph yet. Whereas what I'm realizing though with myself is I'm learning as I'm creating content that for me, I should just get in front of a video and free flow all my thoughts on adjustable rate mortgages, because I have conversations with lots of people. You know, I call adjustable rate mortgages the secret savior of the housing market of the great financial crisis, because the people that had good prime adjustable rates, their rates actually went low for a long time. But like if I just did something like that, and then I could send it to rev.com and get it transcribed, I could probably find just buckets of paragraphs and create all my blogs that way. So I'm learning how to get more efficient with some of these things.
Well, I think that's a good hack. I don't love the word hack, but I've been making it a daily habit to record. So I'm just opening the Notes app on my iPhone, and I'm just transcribing it straight into there. I'm just hitting that, you know, little microphone button. Now the challenge is I don't talk slow enough or clear enough for it to understand everything I say, but it's close enough. And so I started off where I was editing it as I was going, and now I just go. I talk a little slower, like I'm supposed to, and work on that. But I think that's an awesome, an awesome idea. All right, so thumbnails, your ARM blog. What else are you working on that you're willing to share with the group that you think is something that someone else might be able to execute on?
So, so I told you on a separate conversation you and I had that I'm kind of a Twitter fanatic now. I'm not a big fan of mainstream media per se. I think there's a lot of biasness in what you read. So I found people that I just like to follow and look at what they say, make my own observations. So I'm a nut on Twitter, and there's a guy named Logan something who writes for Housing Wire. And he came up with an article just the other day, and he's been chatting about it a little bit, which is, are home buyers really locked in their house? So I'm just giving you an example of, I read something, I'm like, that's interesting. I wonder if that's true. So this morning I spent about an hour and I went into my CRM and I found people that bought a house in 2016, 17, and I wound up finding 5 or 6 people. I then went into HomeBot just to see, did they refinance with anyone else? There was a period of time I didn't have Boomerang. I found a couple people that refied with someone else. So that was a little sobering. But I basically am now telling stories. So I don't know the outcome of this, but I think sometimes creating content in weird markets is taking a concept and either proving it right or wrong, or finding your way of identifying an issue in the marketplace that you might have a solution for. So what I've found just by diving into this is someone bought a house for $600,000. It's now worth about $950. In my market, if you're selling a $950 house, you're probably buying something for $1.4. So what does that whole thing look like? What does their life look like today? What's their mortgage payment based on what they refinanced? How much equity they have? After they sell the house, how much would they walk away with? What would that future purchase look like? What would the tax savings be on the new mortgage? Because the rate's a lot higher. So what really is the difference And how does that impact their quality of life? Like that kind of stuff, I just like researching to try and figure out. And what I'm finding is that in the absence of having many, many lead phone calls right now, those types of little research projects, I think are keeping me really sharp. And also getting me ahead of some of the natural conversations that I think we're going to be having a lot of over the next 6 months. Does that story
I
make
love that.
sense?
All right. So yeah, I love it. So I got an action plan for you, John, and then I got an action plan for everyone else here. So, one of the things I'm launching the final version of the year of my 90-day group coaching program, the Win by Noon operating system. You can check it out at wbnoperating-system.com. And it's a weekly call. It's designed for people who are closing less than 5 loans per month. Although ironically, the last 2 classes I did, 25% of the people were just crushing it, $100 million producer kind of folks. But it's really game for any of you who are brand new, or any branch managers who have brand new loan officers, just loan officers struggling and need a different voice. It's I consider it the most affordable coaching program out there. And one of the things that I'm going to do, and I had done in the last group, was challenge them to create a video around content like what you just said. So my action plan would be, go find that Housing Wire article that was written by Logan, whatever. Maybe we can find it. We'll put it in the Facebook group or down below. And then go on to Zoom. You can get a free Zoom account and start off with a smiling, your smiling face. Hey, it's me, Todd Bookspan.
I can teach you how to do thumbnails.
Yeah, we're not worried about thumbnails, John. We're executing. Good is better. Done is better than perfect, right? So we're going there. And then all you can do is then you're going to turn it around, share your screen. You're going to show the article. Hey, I read this recent article in Housing Wire that said, are buyers really locked into their home? And then you're going to say, here's what I think. You're going to give your opinion on it. And then you're going to say, right, you're going to give the opinion on, hey, here's what I think about buyers who are stuck. And here's why I think maybe buyers shouldn't be stuck. And then you're going to ask, well, what do you think? And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to record that. Goal should be 2 minutes or less. And then what you want to do is you want to send all of your referral partners, prospective referral partners, you want to send them all a text. And the text is going to say this: hey, I just recorded a video on whether buyers are stuck in their homes. Would you like to see it? ? So you're not going to send them the video. You're going to actually ask them if they want it, because you're creating engagement with your partners. 90% plus are going to say yes. And then you're going to go ahead and text them the video. And then you're going to say, awesome. Can't wait to hear what you think about it. Feel free to share with your database. And then you're going to pick up the phone the next day and you're going to follow up with everyone and see what they thought about it. And you're going to encourage your real estate partners to take action to engage with their clientele. You can also put it out there on social media and then ask your clients, ask your partners, hey, do you think you're stuck in your home? Hey, anyone who bought a house in the last, bought a house and refinanced in the last 3 years, do you feel stuck in your home? And create that engagement. So that's my action plan. What do you think, John?
I think that's insane. That's awesome. And so what you're saying is that's the stuff that you do in that coaching group you were just talking about? Because that is, I will say that is my biggest struggle in business, is I feel like there's a lot of good knowledge stuck in my head. I understand the issues and the problems. I can articulate them pretty well with data. How to leverage that into business, which is everything you just did, is my personal struggle.
Well, I'm trying to make
what
it
you just
easy.
did was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it easy and actionable. I did it a little bit in the last sessions, and then what I've really tried to do in this next session that I'm launching is put more easy ways for people to create more referral relationships earlier in the program, because the program is soup to nuts, from really how to create your personal why to lead follow-up. It's my team system. It's the system I created for my team that consistently has closed almost 500 loans a year for a decade. We've averaged pretty high, and so it's a lot of that. It's systems driven, but then really how do we make it actionable as we go? If you go back to the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind, I'm doing today a webinar, a Q&A webinar, so you can jump on and learn more there, or if you just head over to the website, that'll be put up there if you're watching this on video after Tuesday. I'll have on the main wbnoperating-system.com website that Q&A video so that people can watch it. And so, yeah, I'm pretty fired up about it. I feel like people overthink and don't take action, myself included. And more importantly, I think, I always look at it through a few lenses, right? I have to look at it through the lens of how can I make those that are struggling better for low cost, and then low cost of money and low cost of time, right? So that one's something free everyone can do. You can have a free Zoom account. There's other tech you could do that with. And so that's one of the ideas that I like. And so it's fun because Deborah Bird is stalking us over on Facebook. There's a couple of things that she said. It's kind of been a secret that we have a social media version of Win by Noon she's been working on. And I was talking to Adam about it yesterday because I have no idea what the plan is, but apparently she's talking about it. So I have no idea how we're going to distribute it, but if it's something that you're interested in, ping Deborah or myself. And then her question for you is, how are you going after new partners right now in this current market? How are you nurturing your current partners?
It's so the summer was a struggle because everyone vacationed. It was like a real
funny how that worked, right?
Yeah, and I think everyone just took time off, right? So now that everyone's back, what many of my realtor partners are starting to say is, so they're just like us. In a sense, what I'm finding is that their phone just rang for them too over the last 2 years or so. Like they didn't have to run out there and drum up business either. And now all of a sudden they are, and they're looking for talking points. They're trying, one agent the other day said, so to answer Deborah's question, a lot of one-on-one meetings. Hey, let's get together. Let's talk about the new world. What are you seeing? What am I seeing? And then that leads to conversation and some action points. So one person the other day said, I'm not even having conversations to have objections to overcome. So then I thought about that for a while, and we came up with a solution of maybe the answer is some type of either a presentation or a mindset or a past client engagement campaign. And then I did a video on HomeBot that was really wildly watched and responded to. And it was to my database just saying, hey, I wonder if we have a problem where the real estate cycle is sort of broken and the conversation is stopping within households or within heads. And they're not taking the next step to talk to professionals to understand what the real world is and how it's moving and working. And they're sort of self-declaring, I'm not buying. And so we went with a past client engagement campaign. Other agents brought to light, like, well, I am getting people through my opens, but they're a little shell shocked of the payments. So then we came up with strategies of, okay, let's re-educate about tax savings, because when rates were really low and the tax bill changed, there for several years, you didn't have a tax break owning a house, especially if you're a married couple. But now single people get a big tax break. So let's re-educate that. We do that with MortgageCoach. Another thing is talking about how rent inflation lags, because it's a 1-year thing, right? It's not like gas that you go get every week. You sign a lease, you live in it for a year, and then it goes up. So sometimes this rent versus buy right now is really messed up because the mortgage payments are way up here and the rent's kind of like right here. But then if you project out rent, like is expected to go up, you include the tax savings, you have an understanding of market cycles and potential refinance periods of time in the future, you find that just 2-3 years from now, buying still looks way better than renting, right? So uncovering these thought patterns through one-on-one conversation with my realtor partners. Everyone seems to have a different struggle right now in how they're looking at either their personal business or their personal sphere that they run with week in and week out.
So a lot of people are saying, oh, that's great because John's, he's really well scripted. So what's your script to get a partner who's been on vacation and not really doing a whole lot to get them to get together with you?
Well, they know that I haven't gone out and done anything in a couple of years. So, it was awful. The first couple of meetings that I had, we were sitting there, we were like, we haven't done this for like 1.5 years, 2 years. So, I think everyone's just been so busy. So for me, finally, it was like, look, I know you're done vacationing and I know you're not selling anything. So if there's ever a time for us to get together, it's now. So
I love it. That's a great script. That's a great script. So one of the other things that you said to me is, because again, you're a researcher, right? I love the fact that you do things that I've never even knew you could do. Like you said, okay, I've been watching who's been watching my videos on Instagram. And you said it's a lot of loan officers, but you also said, hey, like I've got one of the whales in my market who's been watching your videos. So certainly I know for Keith Collins, I just interviewed him. And of course, I should say I interviewed you. You were the first interview for my soon to be released. My soon to be released top producer mortgage loan officer podcast. And, he talked about similar thing where he's got these whales watching his content and then kind of how he's going after them. So for you, what does that look like? So I know you haven't done it yet because we just talked about it yesterday, but what are you thinking? How are you going to go after these agents who are viewing your content?
Yeah. So, I've learned a ton from watching a few people around the country that I'm just totally enamored with video. Goes back to, the adventure lender. I always like watching him.
John Herrero, yeah, his great
Yep.
stuff.
Yep. And then there was, I think Keith Collins has just really, really raised the bar on video. Dan Keller, for the years, just been watching him, and he had great content. So the idea was, first create something. So that's what I started doing about 60 days ago. I didn't put a ton of thought into it, but I just started talking about stuff. And then and also I noticed I wasn't an Instagrammer ever. So I just went on Instagram 60 days ago. Before that, I was always on Facebook. And one interesting thing I'm starting to realize is just there are people like me where I used to live on Facebook. There are a lot of people that still live just on Facebook. So the last 2 months, I went all Instagram and I ignored Facebook. But now I'm realizing that there's a whole bunch of people that I haven't engaged with on that platform. So there is something to say about, staying on the various platforms. But I think it's more just as you see people continuing to watch you and you have similarities in life and business, I think at some point a reach out of sorts, I don't know what it looks like yet, but I know it's there and it's in my head. And I know that there are people that watch me that I have nothing in common with, and I will absolutely never talk to them. We're different people. So me personally, I'm just sort of looking for who am I going to connect with the best, who sells the type of product that I excel in, and what is that moment? I think the moment will make sense to me when it's there. And I like things to be a little more natural than hunting, but I'm also realizing I need to hunt more.
Well, I hear Deborah Berg talking into my ear, and she's saying engage with them in their DM. So I'm thinking the thing is to be following these agents that are following you, and then you need to start commenting on what they're doing, right? Because that's how you're starting that conversation. So it could just be you follow them on Facebook and they post their new listing and you're like, congratulations. It could be, that they post them and their kid at their kid's birthday party in an Instagram story. And then you're sliding into their DM saying, oh, happy birthday. What a cute kid. I think to me, that would be the way to do it. And it's certainly not my original idea. It's what I've learned from Deborah, because when she said you got to slide into people's DMs, all I think about are the stories that I hear from, my female friends who are like, oh yeah, I'm getting these people asking me, crazy questions that are inappropriate on, in DM. So I always think it's that whole other side of it that we don't want to be part of on social. So I think that would be my thinking, and my coaching on it. Certainly open to anyone's suggestions who's here watching us in the Zoom group or in Facebook. I think that's key. So since Dave's not here, I feel like I've got to point out a couple of things that you mentioned. Number one, as you said, boomerang leads. So I know that you guys are a sales boomerang company and that you guys are getting those leads. And then you also said, hey, I'm using Mortgage Coach as my, to show people. So you're doing if I heard you correctly, you're doing a rent versus own. And then part of what you're doing on that rent versus own is showing the increase in rent. So you might show rent versus own versus now versus rent versus own in a year, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So in Mortgage Coach, it doesn't the future kind of rent inflation. I guess you can use the charts, but it's harder to use Mortgage Coach for that specific story. It's more in the rent column. I can say projected 2025 rent, right? Versus today's mortgage payment minus taxes versus future potential refi at different buckets lower, right? So you can tell some stories that way. What I would say is that Mortgage Coach has been I just have to put stuff in Mortgage Coach because I think the stories come out once you just throw the numbers in there. So, I was trying to tell a story about real estate agents to understand the affordability crunch to use with some of their sellers as far as the rate buy down strategy. And I just basically took the same sale price and I said, column 1, December 2021. Column 2, March of 22, and then June, and then July, and I probably need to update September now. But right for like up 1%, down 1%, up 1% again, and then sort of use that visual so that agents could go to their sellers and say, this is kind of what's happening. The payment's $1,000 more a month, and rent in this area hasn't gone up that much yet, right? So, but if you pay a little bit of closing costs, we can get the buyer down to here, and then it creates stories. So I use MortgageCoach as the base platform for everything. It's my brain works really well with MortgageCoach. I know some people they like their spreadsheets, and I just don't. I find spreadsheets hard to compare, and I just find that, like for instance, right now there's a lot of rate buy down strategies that people are talking about, and I think it's great to make the short-term savings chart equal the recapture period, right? So it's on average 2.5 years right now because the spreads are so blown out. So then that becomes like a great tool of explaining, should you pay points or not? What does a future refinance look like? I think that's pretty awesome to say, here's what it is today, but what if rates kind of go to these different tranches? Here's kind of what it could look like in the future. Certainly no guarantees, but whatever, right? You give some data. So I'm a big nut about putting everything in MortgageCoach. That same thing I was telling you about right now, that story that I'm building on those different people. Like, I really want to figure out how powerful is this move up? Are people really locked in their house or not? And I'll put it in this in the comments below. I'll do the presentation that I'm telling you I'm probably putting together, which is like when they bought it, when they refinanced it, and then what it would look like if they moved up today. Seeing all that visually for me is just so powerful. And I think I've seen there's a gentleman, Mark Billy. Do you ever follow Mark Billy? He's out in California. Awesome content. I love his videos. Short, sweet, shoots them well. I have a crush on Mark Billy. I think he's fantastic. But he's been using MortgageCoach recently in his reels, and the way he pans over, however he's doing the editing, it's really cool. But a great way of just illustrating the numbers. So anyway, that's my MortgageCoach plug.
Well, I love it. And I think, for me, it's always been what you just said, especially when you put a video on, it tells a story different than a spreadsheet can tell a story, and in the end, although, you are a nerd about it, I guess I'm a nerd about it too, about, I dig it. It actually helps it make sense to the consumer or to the realtor, which is what, really matters here. So I think that's a great, highlight on it. And something I didn't want to miss that, because I know if Dave was here, he would have jumped right on it. And I want to make sure that I bring that out as well to our community. And so as you sort of talk through it, one thing is Robert did put a link to that Housing Wire article. So that's all your homework. And what I would love is anyone who does it, just shoot me over a copy of it. Put me on that list. You can just shoot it to me via DM. And I'd love to see it, but I think that would be something great when you do it. Also post it in the community, share it with everyone else, give the other folks who are watching this and aren't taking action some motivation so that they take action as well. Because I think that's really important right now. I think that, I think there's two groups of folks right now. I think there's those who have a lot of fear still, right? There's just a lot of people who are still worried. Am I really going to make it? Right? When Bill Hart says, hey, some people aren't going to make it, we got to put our arm around them and bring them along with us. That's frightening to me. I feel bad for all of those folks. And then on the other hand, we've got people, I think like your realtors who are on vacation who, they did pretty well last year and the year before, and they've actually sitting on some cash. And so they haven't hit that panic mode yet. And so I think regardless of which of those boats you're in, hopefully you're in the middle boat, which is what John is, and which is the boat that's taking action now, right? That's the whole idea of, recession proof your business. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot in here is setting a minimum standard. Like, I feel like you should have a standard for, what it is you're going to do. And so one of the people I interviewed for my podcast is Bliss Sawyer, who's someone else we haven't had on in an interview in a while in this community. And she said that when she started focusing on videos at the beginning of the year, she walked through her strategy, how she made them on the podcast. But ultimately, she said, I was doing them every day, and I made a commitment to do them every day. And then she says, now I only need to do them 3 days a week, because now I've got people trained that I'm going to be consistent and do that. So what do you think your minimum standard should be for you and for people who are watching this from a content perspective if you want to become visible?
So it depends on what level you're at, I think, of knowledge base of mortgage. So what I'm learning now that I am comfortable doing it all, I think it could be like back to what Deb said, a reel a day, 30 minutes inside your social media, being present with your people. The comments that she mentioned, in the DM, that 100% works. She was doing that for me. And what I've even noticed is as they do that, comments, then all of a sudden, I think those people see more of your stuff when your stuff goes out. So the algorithm even serves you more of their stuff, and they always say thanks and, you know, back and forth. So for me, a reel a day, 30 minutes inside social media. The reason I said I think it depends on your knowledge base is there's a certain amount of research that goes into having good content, I think. You know, really understanding how to do tax savings. So you need to know how to really do it. And that might take some research, understanding the history of market cycles of rates, which ones were Fed influenced and stimulus related, which ones weren't. Understanding deeply the financial crisis, like what was the mindset of the consumer at the time, and what was like new construction inventory was at a record high, and how did that play into the next 5 years, and how is this time different? So I do think research and become a master of what you do. And for me, that stuff matters. Now, what I'm learning from a lot of my younger guys is maybe that stuff doesn't matter. Maybe you just need to be available and give fast estimates and pre-approve people quick. I like the education, so I dive more into that. So, but those would be my high-level non-negotiables. I do believe the reel a day, and that reel, what I'm learning, and maybe this changes, but you know, if I can keep it 60 seconds or under, which for me is about 250 words if I script it out. I also talk pretty fast, but you know, you can do that, and you 160-second video, and now you're on Instagram, and I think Facebook right now is 60 seconds, and YouTube Shorts 60 seconds. You know, there's a lot you can do just with one little video and cross it out. The other thing is, I have two other principles that I'm following that I think is actually pretty good. And that's just using BombBomb to use some longer form content messaging to people. And, you know, when I think of, I actually wound up getting 3 reels out of a 5.5-minute video. And they were pretty good reels, but it was me free flowing, right? And like, we could probably come up with some cool things on this 50-minute whatever. And there's probably 5 or 6 little 1-minute clips that are pretty powerful to repurpose. So doing one thing per week, Saturday morning, 8 a.m. delivery to all my leads, sort of the state of the market. And then one late Friday going out to my realtor database, just saying, hey, here's kind of what's going on this week. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what the winning contracts were, just in case, you know, you're a little not out of touch. I'd say it differently. And then a BombBomb video once a month to my client database. That thing, the engagement is off the charts. I've truly just never found anything better than that as far as past client retention. People seem to really love it when you do the video monthly. So those are kind of my current non-negotiables.
All right, I love that. I love that. So there's a few other things I'm going to point out in there. So number one is, and I laugh because it's when I saw the power of the DMs is when Plug and Play, SM, Deborah and her team started doing that for me. So I'm sorry if you're watching this. Some of the time, a lot of the time, it's actually me because I'm doing my best to commit a little more time to that. However, oftentimes it's Deborah and her team going in there and doing that, and it is super powerful. You know, I agree with you. You see more of the content algorithm when you're doing that. So if you are struggling or need some help, certainly I know that you hired Deborah a few months back because you're just looking for consistency that you could count on. That didn't have to be you. And I just love those other tips that you just gave on sort of what is your, so we said a reel a day, we said a Friday afternoon video to your realtors, a Saturday morning video to your leads, your client database, and then a monthly to the whole database. One quick question: why Saturday morning to your leads? Why not Friday morning so that you don't have to worry about responding on the weekend?
So just engagement seems higher. I don't know why. Maybe it is just I'm sitting around drinking coffee and this thing came over. Okay, I'll watch it. And I feel like whenever I send stuff out on Fridays, I don't get a lot of action on it. Personally, as far as when I do video emails. So that's just me seeing when people tend to engage the most.
Got it. So you're old school emailing it. You're not texting it out or posting it anywhere. You're sending them an email through the BombBomb system.
I am. So my CRM, so Jungo, I use Jungo, and it's tied in. The integration's pretty nice with my my buckets, right? So I can just say to leads in this status and this video. So it just works out pretty well there. Same with the realtor partners.
All right, so don't overthink it, people. If you don't have BombBomb because you can't afford it, or if you don't have a fancy CRM like John has, you have a certain number of leads. You can record that as a video on your phone, and then you can text it to them all on Saturday morning. It might take you a little longer than it takes John, but he's just said it's working for him. And don't allow the fact that you don't have that investment that he has in technology to be an excuse. Again, that's oftentimes what I'm finding is we are making excuses for our inaction that have to do with things we don't have. Well, that's okay. If we don't have it because we can't afford it, or we don't have it because our company doesn't own it, or we just have never gotten it, don't let that be the delay that keeps you from taking action on what John has just told us is working for him. And, the other thing I would say too, is you just said, hey, maybe I shouldn't be telling these stories and being all nerdy about the data, but I think that's what attracts people to you, right? I think you also have to all remember to be you and authentically you, because that's what's going to attract the right people. Because as soon as you try to be somebody else, you're going to attract those people. And that's not really who you're going to want to be partnered with long-term, because at some point they're going to realize, hey, this isn't me. And so you talk about data a lot. And I feel like data is the secret weapon to diffuse emotions, right? So I've always said that's what, the TCA does a great job of showing somebody the financial side of what's really an emotional decision. So what other data do you follow that you think, I heard you say Twitter, and you mentioned some other stuff there. Is there any particular data that you feel should be a non-negotiable for loan officers who are or are not as nerdy as you are?
So I think just I think everyone should have a bond tracking someone that they follow, right? There's Barry Abib, MBS Highway, you have MBS Live, Dan Rodwich. I always look at all of them. So I'm a big believer in see what everybody thinks. You'll find a lot of, not differences, but you'll see times that when Barry's extremely in one direction, someone else is kind of like, I don't know if I agree with that. And it's just good to get that perspective, right? It's an open dialogue. So I think that's a must for sure. I still think Mortgage Coach is a must for anyone out there. Even if you're struggling with it, I think the storytelling is pretty powerful. I've tested out something recently. I'm not sure if I'm sold on it, but just anyone out there that has a little bit of money to burn, you could check out Altos Research. So what is that guy's name? Mike.
I know Deborah's a big fan of Altos, so
I'm not going to be able to find it.
That's only if you have money to burn, right? The rest of us will just watch John's videos. In fact, I should really say this. I don't know if I should admit this, but I will. The other thing that you can do, again, now, if you're in the DC market, don't rip off what John does, right? That's not cool. However, if you're in the DC market, then follow the other people that John mentioned, right? The Keith Collins, the Dan Kellers of the world. But I can remember when you put out one of your first videos on COVID and what was going on in the market. I took my phone, I took Otter AI or a Note, one of the two, and I literally had it record, transcribe what you said. And then I literally did a video that my team sent out to the database based on John's video. So again, why? Because my team is in Arizona. They're not in DC. We're not gonna conflict. And now I do remember that John's video was way better, and it got way more engagement. But nonetheless, it's just don't overthink it, right? The whole idea that there are some great people out there you can swipe and adapt. It's certainly a compliment. I think the one thing I always say is, just don't steal it from someone who's in your market. I think that's kind of not cool.
Well, so right now, I think there's a lot of. So of course we're in like peak fear. And I do believe that people are stuck in their house. So the normal buying cycle, I did a video on this, you should check it out, but it was really understanding people live in their head for a year. They talk amongst themselves in their household. And then maybe for 2, 3, 4 months, they tell their family and their friends, and then they meet a real estate agent and lender and they buy in 4 months. And it tends to be an 18-month buy cycle, but 12 to 14 of those months in their own head, right? Outside of us. So I do think we all should be out with a compelling message that also is real and endearing, right? Like I think there's still a lot of people right now that 100% should wait unless they find a seller that pays a whole bunch of points and they get a good deal on a house. But a bunch of others, there's probably good reason to do something. But I did find that other gentleman from Altos Research. You should follow him, at least on Twitter. He comes out every Monday with really good charts. His name is Mike Simonsen, Simon, Simonsen. And so anyway, Altos is sort of it just gives you local data. So I bought 5 counties in our area. I think it cost me $200 a month. And And it just gives me real information refreshed every Sunday night. It tells me active listings. It tells me how many went price reductions, median prices, days on market, like just stuff. And I don't know what that stuff really teaches me. After I look at it for a while, it gives me some intuition and some feeling. I feel better about markets, understanding, how they're behaving. Like right now, inventory, everyone thought was going to skyrocket and prices were going to crash. Well, here in DC, inventory still stinks. It's up a little bit, but maybe prices have already corrected. So that sometimes that data can show you the hot micro segments in your market versus, like right now, I might read an article that talks about Phoenix, Arizona getting crushed. Or is it Phoenix? Salt Lake? I don't know. There's some areas out there where Austin, I don't know. You read it and you're like, oh my God, that housing market's falling apart. But then you look deeper and it's like Sacramento. Like, I don't care about Sacramento. I'm in DC. So I like Altos for that. I've been checking that out. No other real techie things. I was actually doing my expense report the other day and I was like, man, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm dialed in, spending money on the right stuff, and I'm not going broke doing it. Because you know me, Todd, I'll see something and find something that I might be able to do with it, and I'll sign up for it. A year later, I'll forget I signed up for it.
You and me both. So again, here's another action plan for all of you. So some of you are going, well, I don't have $200 to spend on Altos research, right? Go to Redfin. Redfin's got some good data. I'm not a big fan of using Zillow data just because I'm not a big fan of Zillow, but maybe go to Zillow. But Redfin's got data on housing sales, and don't feel like you've got to spend money on it, and then find something about your local market and then have that same conversation that John just did. Hey, I heard on Phoenix or Salt Lake or Sacramento. I don't care about those places. They're going down, but here's what's happening in our market. Again, you record it. You cite what it is. You can feel free to flip around your Zoom camera if you want to do it, or you just do it without having the show. And then you send that to your realtors and say, hey, I just recorded a great video for my clients on what's really going on with inventory in our market. Would you like to check it out? ? Then you send them the video and then you say, awesome, feel free to share. What do you think? ? Right? You're asking for feedback, but you're creating that engagement. And you don't have to spend money. Obviously, John's going to have something different than anyone in his market's going to have, right? He's investing in it and he's going to differentiate himself, but you've got this opportunity to come up with ideas. And I think that to me is going to be my ninja move of the fall, because again, everyone that I've had actually do it, right? Because one of the challenges you have as a coach is, you can't reach your hands through the phone and shake John by the shoulders. Although that was a grabbing your neck thing. Sorry, John.
Yeah, I saw that.
You can't shake him by his shoulders and make him take action. But those who take the action, guess what? They're getting their results. And so I think that's the other part I'm just going to encourage you all to do is take some action. And there's so much you can do with a little investment like John's talking about, or there's a lot you can do without it if you just think, well, how can I do this and have it be, again, it's going to be as good if it gets done. But some of you even just say, hey, it's 80% as good as what John will do. I mean, my hair's bad. It's sticking up. I don't get my hair cut till tomorrow. Again, there's things that aren't just going to be as good looking as John. And that's, I've come to live with that.
You're too much.
So we had,
the thing I like about you is you're always so honest and you tell the truth. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I do, especially about that. So one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is Deborah and I interviewed Jonathan Roach last week, and we talked about stress and self-care. And one of the things that, I've seen you do a lot of and post more about it is, you're taking care of yourself. You're running on your own, you're running with your daughter, you're mountain biking with friends, you're doing all these crazy races where you got to do crazy obstacles. I don't even know what they are. I don't even want to know what they are. And so to talk about that, I mean, you're obviously scheduling time in to take care of, number one, you.
Yeah, so that COVID brought that to me. 2012 and 13 kind of dove into Ironman stuff. That was when I say I kind of took life over for myself at that point. But you do Ironman training, you're 20, 22 hours a week. And then I got injured and I just put that 20, 22 hours a week back into work. And I think COVID gave us all the opportunity and the gift to kind of focus on ourselves a little bit and find those things that we want to do, and you carve it out. So I think, earlier we started this phone call with like, how do you stay consistent on certain things? And what's funny is you stay consistent. I'm now realizing this. You stay consistent on the things that are really non-negotiables, right? If it's a real deep core non-negotiable, for me, fitness is a deep core non-negotiable. And I think, I've actually been thinking a lot about this lately. Part of the reason I'm posting a lot about it is because I want to be around people like that. I get energy from a lot of people. I either want to motivate people to take better care of themselves, live longer, healthier lifestyles, or maybe find those people that like those same interests that are in the business together, and then we all go work business together, right? So selfishly a little bit for business, but then also be a motivator and show people what I like to do. But I think I'm big into that because I continue to see the little wins. I have a lot of tracking tools for health, and it's, I have an app called Training Peaks, and every Garmin tool you can have, and foot pods and bike power meters, and you name it, it's being measured. And I will finish a workout and compare that one to prior weeks, understanding of diet and weight and like all this stuff. So I nerd out on it a lot, but it excites me because I see improvement. And I think when I see improvement, it makes me want to do it more. And that is a part of me jumping on and doing something, seeing that it works, and then doing more of it. And that might actually be why it's so hard for so many people to get started in this business, is it takes time for some of those things to work, right? So I know when I'm socially out there in the world and I'm doing all the right stuff, I generally don't see anything from that for about 90 days. When I stop doing it, I generally don't see the impact of it for 90 days. I think fitness is the exact same thing when you really think through it.
It's funny because Bill Hart said I was the person who gets most excited about tracking numbers with regards to mortgage business. And I do think it's exactly the same, right? For me, it was so fun during COVID to watch people's activity and results go up. And then it was equally exciting for me as the business and rates were starting to go up and refinances were going down, for the people who actually took the time to look at the activities that they were doing, and they could see that their results were going down because of interest rates. And then they were increasing their activities because they were measuring it and paying attention to it so that they could keep their business steady. And, in a year where most people are down, we know there's people, Denise Donahue, Nicole Ruth, other people who have business that's up, and few and far between, but most of the time it can be drawn back to really all you have to do is increase your activity. And if you're tracking those things, so, I'm nerdy too, I've got my Aura ring on, I track all that stuff. I did go on another 1.1 mile training run so that when you and I are in Texas in 2 weeks, that I'll be able to run with you.
Nice.
For a little bit, and then I'll watch you go run the rest of it. In fact, if anyone's going to be in Austin, it's not this next week, but the week after that, John and I'll be there. Reach out. You can join us for a meal where we talk about these nerdy things. Where I think we're only there for 48 hours, but that might be fun. So, all right. So we're here at the top of the hour, and I can't imagine that anybody didn't get actionable items to take and do now, that people didn't get inspiration from your story. Kind of any last minute thing, John, that you want to get out there before we wrap up?
If what I would say is if you're struggling with content, just know that with social media and the power of social media, we can connect with people all over the country. And I think most of us, I'm probably about the most open when it comes to business and what I'm doing of anyone you'll ever meet. But I think sharing ideas within the mortgage community, mortgage coach community, people that or that you follow, hey, what are you doing? What's working in your market? I think you'd be surprised at how many good ideas that you would get just for people openly helping you. A little bit of what Todd said about finding people that you follow to swipe and adapt, change the messaging. I think we should all be on a crusade of promoting homeownership because there's a lot of doubt out there right now. So the more of all of us doing it, the better for the community and for all of our livelihoods. Like for me, another commitment my team put out there is, what if you just picked one property per day and you analyzed it with a real estate agent, you had them pull rent comps, you research what rent inflation is supposed to be, you do a mortgage analysis, and you showcase a property every day. What if that's the one thing that you do?
Sounds a little like the TCA and CMA a day challenge.
TCA a day. Oh, there you go. I do so many TCAs. I'd win that event, but But anyway, there's a lot that you can do out there. I think just sit, think, pick one thing, do it every day, become known as the expert in your area. Take this downtime and do all the stuff that you wished that you did ahead of the last refi wave. For me, get my website a little more dialed in, get socially relevant, get smarter on the down payment assistance programs, get a little bit better at the niche products, get deeper connected with all my agents because I lost some connection through COVID and through busyness, right? So those are all the things I'm just double downing on, and hopefully, you can capitalize on this downtime by deepening connections so that you come out on the other side much, much stronger.
I just love it. I'm writing that down. So anyone who is watching this, here's what I would encourage you to do in a personal ask. One is I would encourage you to take action, right? John just said, hey, there's certain things that he's excited about that are non-negotiable disciplines for him. And I would be looking at that in your personal life. What can you do from a self-care perspective to support your family and yourself? And then also look at it from a business perspective. Like, what is it that you're not doing? I started off this call saying I want to help people recession-proof their business. So I know that we had a lot of executable ideas here, but I would love it if you would ping me or put down below if you think there's any other ideas that we didn't discuss. I can tell you I've got another 6 or 8 that are on my outline for my presentation that I'm preparing, but I would love to know from you who watched this, whether you watched it live or you watched in the video, let me know, what did we miss? What do you think is a non-negotiable that you are doing or that you need to do in order to recession-proof your business? And then just stay part of this community. I would just tell you, reach out to John, give him a, big thank you, high five via the DM if you got value from this. If you're watching this in the YouTube channel, make sure that you give it a like. And then if you haven't yet subscribed to the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel, please do so. As always, we're super grateful that you're all here. John, man, I think you just I know it's always going to be a great call. So I won't lie, I have super high expectations, but as always, you exceeded my expectations. I'm super grateful for you and look forward to spending time with you in Texas. And again, for the rest of you, let's get out there. Let's take some action. So on behalf of Dave and the whole crew over at Mortgage Coach and myself and the Win by Noon team, thanks for being here and look forward to seeing you on Friday for the 300th Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind call. Appreciate y'all. Thanks so much.
See ya.